Kodak Retina IIIc, small c. This is the first camera for me to be servicing for 2021, and as you can see, this one's not very well. I'm not sure why its arm is sticking out like that, but I strongly suspect that the shutter cocking rack has died a death. So, you better investigate. I'll start by removing the rewind knob, and I've just put something through the fork of the rewind knob and then unscrew the knob with my fingers. A single screw at the end of the top cover. They're chrome plated, they're quite easily damaged. You need to take good care not to damage those. 2 screws on the top cover at the rewind end. Let's lift that cover off. There's a lot of dirt around this back edge, bit of grit. I'll lift off the meter. A single screw at this end goes through the meter and through the strap lug. And a single screw at this end holds the meter to the top of the housing. I'll just recover those screws while I'm here. Is that a lively meter or not? No, I'm just pointing that at the light. Absolutely no response there. That meter has died. Okay, I'll just remove some of these loose pieces. I usually separate springs and so forth, and they don't go through the ultrasonic cleaner, but screws certainly do, and washers. I've got a container here of parts waiting to go through the cleaner. These pieces I will not clean in the ultrasonic cleaner because I do not want to strip off the markings. Okay, so let's look at this. What are we seeing? There's no obvious reason why that cocking rack should not complete. It does look like it's near the end of the stroke there. I'll remove that cocking rack, I think, and we'll see if the film advance works with the cocking rack out. That will tell me whether there's a problem in the cocking action through to the shutter, or whether there's actually a problem in the film advance, which is also a possibility. I'll start by removing the screw holding the strap lug in place. Just checking to make sure there wasn't a washer under that strap lug. Often there is a thin shim washer. If it's present, don't lose it. You may need it. You won't necessarily need it. Often where a shim washer has been used in the past, that was before things wore, and the clearances will be different, and it might not need it now. So I've just unscrewed that post. I've got a special screwdriver for doing that. This tool here I made, basically it's just a standard screwdriver. I just used some heat to soften it a bit, cut the end off, drilled a hole down the centre for the shaft to drop into, and ran a slot across it so that it'll engage the flats on that post. And that works fine for that particular job. Let's lift off this retainer plate that holds the rack down, and there was a shim washer in position at this point. So I'll gather that up. Let's remove the rack. and inspect the rack. It's sometimes a bit difficult when the racks are covered in dirt and grease to judge whether they are in good shape or not. I'm holding it against the window light. The teeth perhaps are slightly distorted, but they look like they're complete. They're certainly not stripped out. So with the rack out of the place, will the film advance complete its action? And the answer is no, it won't. So the cocking rack was not the cause of our problem there. Something else is the cause of our problem. And what is it? Right, well, there's a couple of things that could possibly go wrong here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the bottom of the camera first, which means stripping off the leatherettes and so forth. And while I do that, I'll just put the screw back in the top to hold the top cover in place so that I do not lose the shutter release shaft. And I'll just remove the stuff down here on the base plate. Well, I've found a scalpel and I'll see if I can get under that leatherette patch. That's not really wanting to lift. The leatherette is stuck very well, and it may have gone brittle. It certainly suggests that it's not the original adhesive, because it's not normally that much of a fight to lift those. And I'll see if I can find my other scalpel, which has the same blade, but the handle shape suits me better. I find it easier to swing it around in my hand, and you need to be fairly dexterous when you're using something like this. When you're removing leatherettes, it's a combination of methods you're using. You can be using the scalpel as a lever to just lift the leatherette. You could be using it to slide underneath. So it's a mixture of techniques. So having one that rolls around in your hand as you expect it to is most important. Back shortly. Well, it has gone to ground, so we're going to be using this one regardless. I'm going to try a drop of naphtha under that leatherette in case the adhesive will soften. Let's just try this. That appears to be having some useful effect. Removing leatherettes is often one of the hardest parts of the job. We're removing them in a fit state so that you can reuse them, I should have said. You need to be pretty cautious about what you use in the way of a solvent if you're doing something like this. Because too much solvent or the wrong type could ruin the leatherette. Right, there's my patch from the film advance off. I'm really none the wiser as to what the situation was there, except that the adhesive had really got it stuck. So we'll remove the film advance lever, which is held by 3 screws. And I'm looking in here now, see if I can see anything odd. It's possible that the 3 screws that hold the mechanism down in here, the film advance bush to the body, have come adrift. I'll remove this back catch release cover, which is held by 2 small screws. There's a small return spring in here too, which I've got to be careful not to lose. Lift that cover off. That doesn't go through the cleaner. Neither does the lever, and neither does its return spring. I want this piece of leatherette off here. Now, given how much fun it was getting the leatherette patch off the film advance, this could be similarly awkward, or it could be completely different. That clack sound you hear every now and then is me dropping my visor down in place. I've got a optivisor to help me see what I'm doing. That crackling sound you hear is the adhesive breaking away from the metal surface under here. The leatherette's just cracked at that point, so I've got to be very careful not to damage it. The base plate here, that's a chromed brass trim that covers the base plate, but it exposes the aluminium body through in a section here. The adhesive often sticks differently to the chromed brass than it does to the aluminium section underneath, and so you often find that the leatherettes will lift from the edges, but they are stubborn through the middle. That's really not sliding under there nicely. I'm just going to put a drop of naphtha under there. which may do one of two things. It may soften the adhesive, or it might lubricate the blade slightly so that it slides underneath the leatherette easier. The leatherette here is cracking. It's dried out. It's brittle with age. Back when the world was young and cameras came into the service department when I was at Kodak, there was none of this mucking about. If the leatherette didn't come off quickly, it was just stripped off anyhow, and you simply got a new piece of leatherette out of the spare parts drawers when you put the camera back together. Of course, there's a lot of dirt coming out from under here. That means those leatherettes have lifted slightly and dirt has got under there, or they've lifted and someone has squirted something under there in the way of adhesive. Even if leatherettes break on you, don't give up. Don't give up trying to get them off in one piece, or even two pieces, because some cracks will disappear entirely when the leatherette is stuck back down, and others can be successfully disguised with the aid of a bit of black wax. And remember, it's the base of the camera. You're not even going to see it when you're using the camera. No one else is going to see it. So I can see that the leatherette is cracking there. It's just brittle. Okay, so there's a broken part of the surface there that will certainly have to be disguised. Now we're left with some there. There's a patch left on there. It's broken out from the leatherette. I'm not going to try and remove that. I'm going to carefully leave that there and glue the leatherette back around it. I don't need that piece out. You can probably see by the state of this that we've got a lot of rubbish, dust and filth here. Some of that is crumbling leatherette, some of it's crumbling adhesive. And here I'm removing the screws that hold the chrome trim down to the base plate, because that will expose our film advance mechanism down at this end. And I expect that the 3 screws holding this tripod socket will be loose, because they frequently are. There's our trim off. Let's have a look at this film advance. I'm looking for anything unusual here. seems quite well stuck. Let's see if I can wind that back into the start position again. Should have started about there. And the film advance mechanism to run round. This piece here should pop up. It's not moving. So there's a problem there with that lever. So I suspect that that's where the problem lies. Just check my shutter release, just making sure there's no spring under that, because there often is. I think what's happened is that this screw here is backed out, and so it's not allowing this lever to pop back up. If I fit my film advance lever back in place, we may have some idea what's going on here. We'll do that. Let's just put this on. Alright, so this is our lock button. That locks the film at the end of when it reaches frame number 1. And this is the release lever that releases the film advance to allow you to wind on. So if I hold down the lock button, swing my film advance, it works normally. To press the shutter release, we'll hit that film release button. Hit the release button. I'm holding down the lock button. That moved comparatively normally. So I'm fairly sure that what's happened is that this screw has backed up until it was contacting the underside of the shutter release button here, which is quite sticky and was probably prone to sticking down anyway. And that was preventing this from rising. And when that was prevented from rising, it meant that it couldn't drop into position. I'm watching the action of it here. There's certainly a roughness to the feel of that, and it may be that the lock lever is catching there too. Anyway, I can tell that all of this is quite sticky and dirty, but it's good to know that my main problem is not a stripped shutter cocking rack, and I'll inspect this closely once I've got it clean. But I'll tell you more about the joys of shutter cocking racks at that stage, because it used to be a relatively simple thing to obtain a new shutter cocking rack. You could get spares, supposedly aftermarket spares, and you can't get them anymore. Just removing the rangefinder. It was fixed down with 2 screws, and while I've got this here, I'm just having a quick inspect this to see what I think. It's a bit dusty, It's otherwise relatively clean. I'm just going to have a look out the window. It's quite good. It's quite a good example. It's not at all uncommon to find the rangefinders in a fairly terrible state. There's about 20 air glass surfaces involved in the range viewfinder and rangefinder system on a Retina IIIc, and with that number of surfaces they can all gather up a little bit of haze, and between them you end up with a very dirty, cloudy looking viewfinder. Now the viewfinders in the Retina IIIcs are supposed to be yellow. That's not a bug, it's a feature. I'll just remove that clip, take the spring off there, remove my lock lever. I'll have to take that film advance knob off first. I'll remove the screw here from the top of the release lever. Catch that before it gets away. There's our release lever, and this piece here tracks the cam on the bottom of the film advance. Now here I just want to lift that spring off because it's fairly delicate and easily damaged, and I want it out of the way while I'm putting things through the cleaner, because otherwise it'll get damaged. Just remove film advance lever again. Now I did notice when I had this, was able to get the shutter cocked briefly before, that the shutter was very sticky. It was going to need servicing anyway, so regardless of the film advance problem, the camera had problems. Now at the base of the camera, it's quite normal for these tripod socket screws to be loose, and they are. I thought that was moving about a bit. That doesn't imply that there is a terrible problem with the camera, because the screws are often found to be loose. The camera is, after all, about 65 years old. It's allowed to have a few minor problems. Okay. At the top of the camera, I still want to strip down more of this film advance mechanism.